Hello, lady gents. Okay, so today's question is, does thinking burn calories, and if so, how many? Now the answer is basically, it's complicated. But it's complicated. But yes. The reason for its complexity is that although mainstream science has determined that complex cognition occurs in a part of the brain called the frontal lobe, it's basically impossible to isolate thought from all the other mental and biological responses and processes that occur simultaneously. Okay, so let me give you a quick background on the brain. Your brain is the most energy-consuming organ in your body. So it consumes about 20% of your resting metabolic rate. That means when you're sleeping or when you're just hanging out, your brain is eating up 20% of all the energy you use during that day. In fact, the brain can need so much energy that for very young kids at certain periods of intense development, their brain can ask for upwards of 60% of all the energy they have, which is kind of crazy considering that the brain only burns between 12 and 20 watts, which is like a really efficient light bulb. But basically, if you're burning about 1,500 calories in a day, your brain is eating 300 of those right off the bat. So you know how there's this idea that the bigger the brain, the smarter the person? Well, that's actually not true. The average male adult brain weighs about 1,400 grams. Get this, Albert Einstein's brain weighed 1,230. So there really isn't a good correlation between size and intelligence. Now the brain is fueled almost exclusively by glucose, unless you're starving and then some ketones help out. So when scientists are trying to determine how many calories are being burned during a cognitive task, they're basically measuring your glucose levels to see how far they've dropped. And yes, based on that research format, certain studies have concluded that you do burn more calories when you're performing a complex cognitive task. So for example, some research cited in the Healthline article states that a 155-pound person can burn about 42 calories within 30 minutes of reading, so 500 calories within 6 hours of reading. Which isn't bad, but if you're really serious about losing fat while thinking, then you might be tempted to become a world-class chess player, because these chess players, when they're in their day-long tournaments sitting down playing games, have reportedly lost upwards of 6,000 calories within 12 hours. That's almost 2 pounds of body fat. Now look, it would be really cool if all that was due to just thinking, but unfortunately most of it's due to stress. According to the renowned biologist Robert Sapolsky, chess players during tournaments experience triple breathing rates, elevated blood pressure, and constant muscle contractions. And of course, they're neither eating nor sleeping. But it's interesting about the stress factor because most forms of stress actually slow your metabolism down and make it more difficult for you to lose weight. But it seems that there's a different type of stress that you experience when you're engaged in a competitive task that actually helps you lose weight. And I only bring that up because I haven't yet discovered research that distinguishes between these types of stress. So I don't know precisely what the parameters are or what the differences are. So that's a mystery. Regardless, the addition of stress and its inability to be dissociated from thought has really muddied the waters of the data when you're trying to determine precisely what is burning the calories. And this is where the research gets lost in the weeds a little bit, because depending on the study you read, you will find a different conclusion. And the matter is further complicated by the fact that brain activity and mental exhaustion are not 100% correlated. So for example, if you're watching a movie and you're really engaged with it, you're feeling a lot of emotions, lots of different parts of your brain are being activated. Whereas if you're taking an exam, much fewer parts of your brain are being activated, you're focusing on one thing. But after the exam, you tend to feel way more exhausted mentally than you do after watching the movie. We don't even know why frustrating cognitive tasks create more exhaustion than non-frustrating tasks. It's a mystery. It hasn't been determined yet in the scientific literature. It probably has something to do with consciousness itself, and since we know nothing about consciousness, it might not be answered for a while. The one thing that all the science does tend to agree upon is that thinking by itself doesn't really burn that many calories, especially when compared to the resting metabolic rate of the brain. So just how much the brain is burning to be alive and to function properly. So in conclusion, if you're trying to lose weight by reading the dictionary, not a good idea. You might want to become a chess champion because the stress is ridiculous. But otherwise, it's not the healthiest way. You might just want to exercise. So, pick your poisons and figure it out. Alright, lady gents, so hopefully that answered the question with some degree of coherency. Obviously, this is a field of study where there isn't a lot of concrete answers, and it's difficult to piece it all together, but I promise I'll do better next time, because that's the point. So peace, and I'll see you in the next video. I won't see you, but someone will see me, that's for sure. I hope. But we'll see. Goodbye.